Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Thank you all for coming, and Happy New Year. We begin with our public comment section of our agenda. We have one person who has asked to speak. Sir, if you wouldn't mind, please, when you come down to the microphone, identify yourself by name and the town in which you live, and then please deliver your remarks. Thank you.
Good evening. Oh, it's loud, sorry. I am here on behalf of the hundreds and hundreds of parents in this district that feel silenced and censored from being here themselves. From the National School Board Association's memo to the DOJ to classify parents as domestic terrorists, to the stigma of social media, parents feel that voicing their opinions publicly could be a problem with their work or affect their children in school. For 2 years, we have had our intelligence insulted with this bogus mask mandate for the children in the schools. The school is the safest place for an adult to be. These children's immune systems are completely effective. There are now countless studies on the inefficacy of masks in combating viral infection, especially when the virus is aerosolized, like the CD has now stated, which we all knew long ago. You and the health officials of Maine have completely disregarded the facts around mask efficacy. Years of mask wearing is very unhealthy and detrimental to the growth of the brain of a child. At some point very soon, you will have to acknowledge these facts and the concerns of parents and children of this community before the politicians' agendas. The president has even said it is now up to the states to figure this out. Maine is better than this, and they need to make the right decisions for our children's health. Just remember, totalitarianism never releases control with compliance. We are at the end of our ropes. These masks need to come off of our children if you choose not to wear one. Period. Thank you for your time, everyone. Happy New Year. Please take this statement to heart. Think about it. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Thank you very
comments.
much.
Thank you.
That brings us to the report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, December 15th?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, December 15th, 2021.
Second, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. Any comments or questions?
You're very thorough.
Very thorough.
Very thorough.
Yeah, it was a lot to report on.
I think the only thing I saw one thing that I had a question about. On page 3, under number 5, The last sentence, per state of Maine statute, if any child is not immunized or has documentation of scheduled immunization, the student will not be able to attend school either remotely in person. I thought that if they had documentation of scheduled, they could. Should there be a no in there?
I think that was supposed to say, or does not have documentation. Yeah,
okay.
that should be corrected.
Yeah,
Does not
that's-
have documentation of
That's what I
scheduled
thought.
immunization.
Okay.
That's in number 5 on page 3. Good catch, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? That is 5-0. Thank you very much. The only thing I have on the report of the chair is our next town officials meeting, which will take place next Wednesday, which is the 12th of January. That'll be virtual again, 9:30 start time, and as we have done for the past few months, if those of you who want to attend would just coordinate with me, we'll figure out which 3 will go.
Okay.
Great, thank you. That brings us to the report of the superintendent.
Great, thank you very much. Tonight, we were going to start off with a report from the Marshall Great Works School about the outdoor classroom. So, Mr. Bernal, I turn it over to you and your team.
Thanks, John. And here comes the team. So when you walk up into the Great Works School and you're coming up those front steps, as you're coming into the lobby, if you look over to the right-hand side, you see our reading library. Now, if you went back 10, 12 years ago, if you look there, you would have seen a lawn. And that reading library came about because Cindy Maloney and I and a couple of other teachers, when we were at Pinkham Notch, we were just watching the kids outside, just really engaged in learning, and we said, you know, why can't we do that here at the Great Works School? And so, presto, you know, a couple years later, all of a sudden you have that beautiful reading garden. I'm really proud of the staff at the Great Works School in that, you know, Pinkham Notch is obviously it's a huge part, I think, for the kids, for them to be able to go, and it's almost like one of those points in their MSAD 35. It's like one of the high points for many of them. But also for teachers, I think it really opens up our eyes and like, man, does the learning have to be done inside room 30? Does the learning have to be done inside the 4 walls of the school? And so I think the last 3, 4, 5 years, we have been doing a lot of work on expanding our classroom. So it's not just done inside the building. And so I've got a couple of folks, I'm not going to talk much. Sarah and Hillary are going to do the talking. Sarah is our reading coach. She has been instrumental. She taught 4th grade last year, pandemic. It's like, okay, Sarah, now you're going to teach 4th grade. But she has been instrumental in the whole outdoor learning. And it's fundraising, it's writing grants, it is professional development, it is modeling by taking her kids out there. Hillary is a 4th grade teacher, and Hillary has been our hiking advisor. She's been hiking with the kids after school for years. She is kind of the liaison with Scott Patch and the Hold. And last year, Hillary ended up starting hiking with her class. Every Thursday's kind of a weird day just because it's the early release. And so Hillary started hiking with the kids. And just one quick story, I walked in with a kiddo this year. It was probably early December, foggy, rainy morning. His mom dropped him off. He walked in. I was walking down the hall with him, had my arm around him, and I said, hope it's going to be a good day. He said, gonna get wet today, Mr. Bernal. And I said, what do you mean you're going to get wet? And he goes, and it was pouring out. And I said, well, by the looks of it, it's going to be indoor recess. He said, I'm in Miss Hummerston's class. Thursday is hiking day. And I can guarantee you, Mr. Bernal, we are going to be hiking with Miss Hummerston today. And yes, that's where they went. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah and Hillary, and we'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Hello, I am Sarah Alice, the Reading Interventionist Literacy Coach, and this year I'm very fortunate that Grace Jacobs and I get to be the 1 day a week Woodland and Wonder Specialists and Outdoor Educators, which is really joyful. We've made a slideshow for you because we can talk up here for hours about how amazing it is to take our kids outside, but seeing, if I can get this to work, Maybe not. I gotta aim it that way. Whoop. Okay. You'll do it? Here we go. All right. So we have been on a journey throughout the few years, like Mr. Burnell said, and many of you have had students have experienced Pinkham Notch, and since 2000, fifth graders have been able to go to the Pinkham Notch and have 3 days at Mountain Classroom, and the curriculum has changed from learning about the water cycle or forest ecology, climate science, and food chains, but it's always been a chance for them to have a real field work experience and hands-on and hiking. And unfortunately in 2020 we weren't able to go, but teachers were able to pivot and take their experiences as leaders with the teachers at Mountain Classroom and bring a similar experience to our students on local hikes. And here are just some pictures of the awesome memories that many people have. Sorry. And so Hillary's going to talk a little bit about how the partnership with Hold and the high school has begun from this experience.
All right. So as long as I've been at Great Works, this is my 7th year, Scott has been bringing high schoolers from the Hold group, and it started many years before that, so it's been happening for quite a while. But Scott will bring his high schoolers down to our school and lead our kiddos in an after-school hiking club and experience. And I think one of the beautiful things about this experience is that it's multi-layered. Our kiddos, like if you can see their faces light up when they get their high schooler, they're tasked with getting to know them, with making sure they don't get lost, but the joy in their eyes, they're so excited. And for our high schoolers to come down and have a chance to mentor these kiddos is huge. And so, us adults in these experiences oftentimes take kind of a bystander role, and we're just kind of watchers. And the high schoolers really spearhead this. They share their knowledge about nature, what they've learned through Scott and their hiking experiences, and then they talk to the kids about life and about school. And when Mr. Burnell was talking about Pinkham Notch, almost every single high schooler that comes back talks about their experience at Pinkham Notch with such joy and glee, and they share it with our kids. And then, our fifth graders, as they're getting ready to go, they're so excited, and part of that's the joy that's been shared from the high schoolers down.
And as teachers, we really enjoy it too, and it's been part of the reason that we wanted to bring it more consistently to our students on an everyday basis here at Great Works School. In 2019, in August of 2019, we did a Dream School activity, and many of our lists had more outdoor learning experiences for our students. And so we got to work. We started planning a big fundraiser, writing MEF grants, working to clear those outdoor spaces together, getting a stage built. That's continued this past summer, where Eagle Scout Andrew Dasowski has come and added 2 more classrooms out in the back. And the whole community has helped make this happen, whether they're supporting their student through a fundraiser, the staff getting out there and doing many loads of wood chips to the area. And then these specific people here on this list that have really made this happen: Dan and Caleb Boyle did the framing of our pavilion. Shane Chick helped engrave all the species, different tree species of the wood in the timber. Sean Marshall and Dynamic Solutions building the pavilion. Caleb Mendy at Red Squirrel Arbor Care has donated all those stumps and brought all of truckloads of the wood chips in. Of course, the Marshwood Education Foundation for helping fund big portions of this. And again, Andrew Dasowski for continuing the work to expand our spaces, because we have more and more teachers wanting to be out there. And the Great Works School staff. whether we're out there building and clearing out invasive species or just maintaining gardens and getting kids involved, it's definitely been a team effort. And you can just see some of how it has happened, building the pavilion, getting out into these spaces around our school. When we returned to in-person learning last year, we definitely saw a need for more social emotional learning and support for both our students and our teachers. With your support, we've been able to bring in professional development that has helped teachers to expand their skills, to help students to feel connected to nature. We know that the research is there that it helps students, their mental health, their physical health, that play helps them learn problem solving and critical thinking skills, that teamwork and collaboration happen in that authentic setting out in nature. And so we've been really able to help our teachers through the professional development be able to support the students in their self-awareness, their self-management, their social awareness, building on those relationship skills, and really working on their decision making. And it has, Hillary's going to talk about how consistently being with her class, she's been able to see that happen.
As a staff, we're all kind of in these different spaces of the journey of getting outdoors and what that means for each class. And as Mr. Brunel said, I've been able to take my kids hiking once a week. And I don't think it was really until at parent-teacher conferences this fall, and a parent said, we were just talking about the hiking and how it helps bring the class together, and their comment was about shared experiences. And I just hadn't thought about it in that way, but it really is, I think, a huge connector for our kids. And I've noticed, it's sacred time. It's become sacred time. The kids know we go rain or shine, and they look forward to it, and it becomes a highlight of their week. And oftentimes on Fridays, I do what was your Friday? What was the best part of your week? And I would say 90% of the time, for almost all of the kids, it is that hike, it is that time outside. And we get outside, and it's this this visible, okay. And, we always have kids that have different interests, and kids that gravitate towards each other. And one of the other things that I've noticed is these kiddos that don't have any outward similarities or interests, I've watched them connect and form meaningful and deep connections through these shared experiences outside. So sometimes we build debris shelters, and so we just did an adventure survival book club unit, and really kind of applying that reading knowledge and thinking their lens just becomes different outside in the way they're perceiving what's around them. And we've done nature boats, and we found a stream, thanks to Sarah. And so just the level of bonding and connecting that happens through this. And I would also say that one of the things that as a staff we've talked about is how our kids now seem more aware of their physical community. I think sometimes community is a hard concept for 4th and 5th graders, and they've become more aware and appreciative of their physical community, and we've noticed that translate into thinking and being thoughtful and responsible citizens of their actual community, and just how that translates and grows for our students.
So like I said at the beginning, that we were able to pilot Woodland in Wonder this year on Thursdays. We get to have it as a special for all students, because not everybody is where Hillary is in their journey of teaching outdoors. But Grace Jacobs and I get to teach 6 sessions to each class. They have 3 at the beginning of the year and 3 in the second half of the year. And we really just promote exploration of nature, using tools outside like binoculars and a hand lens. We just gives them some challenge with healthy risks and team building, and being able to really use the seasons to learn and think about what's going on in the world and how they're connected to it. And as you can see, it's my favorite time of the week. We get to use the neighborhood trails, do tree identification, Like Hillary said, the stream is a favorite place for many of our students. We've done some microinvertebrate aquatic studies out there. This is on our campus in the meadow, just working on observation and journaling, playing lots of team games together that build in concepts of predator and prey and food chain. And we've got lots of insect observations going on. So everyone's kind of in a different place, and we just hope that this journey can continue. We really appreciated the support from our administration and from the board to continue, just not only that we can go out and take the kids out, but that we get the professional development for us to be able to keep working on how we can support our students academically, socially, and their emotional growth. So this is a little peek. You're all invited to come any Thursday that you want to join Woodland and Wonder. We'd love to have you. I don't know if there's any questions, but.
Thank you. I just have one clarifying question. You mentioned Scott and high school students. Who is Scott and what is his role at the high school?
Sorry, Scott Patch, he is one of the educators here at the high school, and so he had an after-school enrichment club, the Hold group, so Hawk Outdoor Leadership Development, I think that's what it stands for. And several years ago, he transitioned it into a class at the high school as well.
Thank you.
I love this so much, you guys. I know you know that I love this, and I just love it models resilience. I love that you get out, rain or shine. I think that's huge for kids, talking about DEI stuff, having a place where everybody gets a chance to be outside, getting a little uncomfortable and powering through. I just love it, love it, love it. And I appreciate Mr. Bernal just saying yes and going for it. I love it, you guys. Thank you.
I forgot I was going to read this. This is from a 5th grader, and I'll just read the last paragraph. They're talking about experiencing at every classroom, but it said, finally, the last outdoor classroom my class and I went to was the rustic classroom. It's my favorite classroom. It's tucked away, and when you focus on something, everything else gets blurred out. It feels like you know everything about that thing you're focusing on. I felt like I had been there before. It was spectacular and unique. It was dark but warm and comforting. In all the classrooms, I heard the birds chirping to rhythms they made themselves. I loved the rustic classroom best. I felt like it was my favorite place. I felt relieved and joyful to be there. And we're just really proud that we get to bring that experience to kids on a regular basis, because we want them to be happy and connected both to school and outdoors. So thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Great. Next, we're going to go into our COVID-19 update, and this might the next 2 agenda items might blend together a little bit. But as you noticed, the last 2 days, we've had some really high numbers. And so in addition to the high number of cases that have been reported at the schools, there was also a change in the SOP. And so I think it's easy to correlate the two things. They're really not related. The new SOP really went into effect Thursday, so some of those things are occurring now, but a lot of these cases are a result of over the break time, and so that I don't think you can say this is happening because we changed the SOP. That's not a fair assessment.
Not at all. Yeah.
But the cases are very high right now. We had a high number of cases over the winter time, over the winter break. And I think today there was 28 or so, roughly, of new cases. So obviously that's very concerning. That being said, a new SOP was rolled out on Thursday. And so that's a tricky thing. And I just think maybe before I dive into what does it mean, let me kind of just start from ground zero, because I think sometimes things get a little bit confusing. So when it comes to schools and COVID, there are 2 documents that really are 2 laws or 2 sets of lawmakers that really impact what we do. The first is the federal government, and so the federal government says to us, and it says just like going on an airplane, that you are required to wear a mask on an airplane. And they treat a bus just like an airplane. So even if the Maine Department of Education had a different view, let's just say, or we had a different view, that's a federal law. So masks must be worn on buses. That's just how it is, just like if you're going to go on a Delta flight. So that's a little bit confusing because it doesn't make sense, but that's just kind of, and remember that kind of came through in August. So that's one part. The second part is the SOP, the standard operating procedures, and what it really says is, if there's COVID in your schools, this is how you manage it. And so The document kind of creates a baseline, and it's a little bit tricky and it's a little bit confusing. And so what it says is, if you have positive cases, this is what you must do. And so it says, 6 feet social distancing, we need to do contact tracing, people need to miss X amount of days of school. So it's really tricky. So like, what does that mean? So that means if there is a singular case in a classroom, let's just say there's a first grade classroom, you would start and you would contact trace in that classroom. So you would go back and say, how many people were X feet apart? And so the SOP originally read that it would be 6 feet apart. And then you would say, let's go to the bus, and how many people are impacted on the bus? And you would kind of draw that radius on the bus. And then you would go to, they were in a special, then we would draw kind of the radius at a special. And then we would go to lunch, and we would draw a radius at a lunch. There's a lot of layers that go into that. Then on top of that, there's things that the district can choose to do to be able to keep kids in school, and there's things that families can do. And so for families, for instance, vaccinating a child is one of those things that if you are a close contact and you're vaccinated, if you're symptom-free, then you don't have to miss school. You're all considered close contacts, so contact tracing has to happen no matter what. Another example is the pooled testing. So the ability of the pooled testing means is you statistically are getting tested once a week, and if you are a close contact, you're deemed a close contact, then you don't have to miss school unless you're positive. And so there are things that families can do. When it comes to schools, we had a really tough decision to make. And so the standards of what we had to do, we couldn't say we're not contact tracing. Like, that's not an option for us. We were told this is what we must do. Yep. And if there's a positive case, this is how we must handle it. They then said, but wait, there's a caveat. If you choose to universally mask, and we're not going to make you do it, but we're going to make the rules a lot better to keep kids in school, they're going to cut down the contact tracing from 6 feet to 3 feet. And that's significant. We can't in our schools. Last year, we spread out our desks 6 feet apart. We were able to do that because about 23% of our students weren't in school. They were running remotely. So we're able to kind of spread out things. We used our ESSER monies that we got from the federal government to be able to hire new staff. We maximized all the space that we had, and that's how we were able to do that. We could not do that again because we didn't have the ability to do that, and we really said that we wanted kids back in school. That was the important thing. So when we met in August, we made the decision to be able to mask. I know none of us want that to be the option. But when we looked at it in the summertime, it was really about how do you keep kids in school. The contact tracing is real. And I don't have the number in front of me right now, but I believe it was over 1,000 close contacts prior to break if we were to go on the dashboard. So that's 1,000 people that are missing up to 10 days of school, not because they were positive, but because they were considered a close contact. So look, I know there's two sides to the masking conversations. The people who feel adamantly like this is ridiculous, there's science that says this, and then there's other people who are saying that, darn it, MSAD 35, you're not doing enough, you should be doing more. I understand that, and I hope people understand that we're trying to make the best decisions that we can to be able to keep kids in school. That's the big idea. I know people aren't going to agree with us, and I wish I could, do something that we could all be on the same page, but the reality is if we gave people the choice to wear masks, we would not qualify under the universal masking piece. So if one person chose not to wear a mask, 2,000 students would have to be treated as not having a universal masking policy, and then we lose that leverage of that 3 foot social distancing. So there's some finality to this, and there's some real, we have some decisions that we can make and things we can't make, but we can't make the decision to say, we're not going to wear masks and we're not going to contact trace, or we are going to wear masks and we're not going to contact trace. We have to manage the virus this way, and there's different ways that we can change how we manage it to keep kids in school. Yep. So I sometimes think we talk too fast about what's happening, so I'm just trying to slow it down to be able to explain it to people. People may be like, John, we've heard this before, and forgive me. This is where it gets a little trickier. On Thursday, the CDC and the DOE have been working really hard to try to create a new plan. And I think that, the masking piece is an issue. I think they wanted to do some things to be able to loosen up things, because at some point we're going to have to move forward, folks. There's a point in line where we have to get on with life. And I think that they felt that pressure. So they began to work on this document. So at the same time, this new variant came out, and you see a lot more cases. So the timing isn't great by any means for anybody involved. The new document that they created, though, did a couple of things. The first thing it did is it said, okay, guess what? we're going to take away the 3-foot social distancing piece. If you are a universal masking school, no one needs to miss school if they're considered a close contact. So that means before, in theory, if you did the math, typically we would have anywhere from, depending on the grade level, more so at the elementary school than the older grades, but anywhere for every one case that we had of a positive, there might be 7 to 10 people that are impacted by that maybe fell within that close contact range that maybe weren't vaccinated or weren't pool testing, so they would have to miss school for 10 days. That's eliminated. So now if you were universal masking, you can be in school, and if you're close contact, and that doesn't mean you're positive, that means if you're close contact, you can continue to come to school. That's a huge shift for everybody. So on one hand, you say that makes sense. However you feel, whatever we can do to keep kids in school, that's a really important part to this. That's good news. On the other side of it, there's people who are saying, wait a second, this doesn't feel as safe as we were before. And so there's a couple things that was part of this plan that were concerning. And one of those, and I met with the nurses a number of times today, I've been on the phone a lot just trying to make sure I get my facts straight, but traditionally, if a person were positive for COVID-19, they would need to be out of school for 10 days. That was typical what would happen. What this new rule said was, if you're positive and your symptoms are resolving, you can return to school after 5 days. And that made people very, very concerned. And so that's one of the issues that our nurses are like, wait a second, that doesn't feel right to me. Now it becomes these really tough conversations with families. Is there a sniffle? Is there not a sniffle? Is there a fever? Is there not a fever? It just feels like there's a layer of protection that's been kind of taken away. So we're struggling with that a little bit. So we're trying to get some clarity from the Department of Education and the CDC about that. So that's one area that is, kind of a tough spot. The other thing is that if a child were to come to school, let's just say, and say their parent was positive at home, they are a close contact outside of school, they could still come to school, but they would be required to mask. And that makes people obviously nervous, that there's some nervousness about this. So again, it's a question that needs to get resolved just so we can get some clarity around what that means. So we're working that through. So we're going through, our representative to the DOE. There was a conference call on Monday where some of this information was talked about. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts right now with this. What I'm really concerned about is this whole idea of contact tracing. And so Judy Doran, who does a fantastic job, sent me a document back in November. And it was really like a 6-page document of saying, if there's a positive case, this is what we need to do. And you don't think of it that way. You think it's kind of easy, but then all of a sudden you look and they've got 7 different documents going, and is this one vaccinated? Was this one on this bus? Who did they sit next to? Are they pool testing? Have they been positive in the last 6 months? There's a lot of variables that went into that. When the document was released, it initially felt like that they weren't going to ask nurses to contact trace anymore. And so remember, or determine close contacts, which is really the difficult thing, because you start off with really, if you, for instance, if you go through Marshwood High School, let's just say on a given day, and the second day would change, so double it, would be you're in 4 classes plus advisory, so let's just say there's approximately 18 people in each one of those classes, so you're starting with an N of 72. If the child eats lunch, you're then adding the lunch group to that N, so now you're talking at about 172, and if they take the bus, you're adding another 20. So there's 200 people that you're starting with when you contact trace. And that's when you start to slowly pull away those numbers where you get down to that number of 7 or 8 different people. And so that's a pretty laborious task to do. And so it's hard enough when there's 1 or 2 cases. Imagine today, I think, if I might get this wrong, I think it was 11 cases at the high school today. Imagine it being times 11 now. And so I was really concerned about nurses facing burnout of what the expectations are. And so the way it was written, there was no longer, the state wasn't collecting information on contact tracing any longer, so if they're not valuing it to collect it, then why are we doing it? So they just want to know the positives, and so I thought there was an opportunity. With the meeting today, it sounds like they still want us to contact trace for their community-based things, which is very different than school-based. And I just want to make sure that we're not leveraging our staff to solve a community problem, because we don't have any jurisdiction over a community. It's hard enough to make these phone calls to say, look, you've been involved in this, you're a close contact, let alone saying now, hey, guess what? You can't go to daycare. You can't go to soccer. You can't, like, it's just, it's not our place. And so we're getting put in a really difficult position. So I've created a document that I shared with our superintendent representative to the Department of Education. They're meeting tomorrow with some questions on it, just to try to get some clarity, and I'm hopefully that some of these things will change. In fairness to the DOE, they didn't foresee the omnivirus, and I'm guessing a lot of this is going to be contributed to the new variant, but didn't see the numbers skyrocketing the way they have, and that's across the state. The other thing that they did was they said, okay, we're going to get rid of this whole idea of an outbreak status. And so the outbreak status, it was ridiculous. It was 3 positive cases in a school over a 2-week period, you know, whether it was, I think it had to be a Binax test or what, you know, one of the particular tests. And so having 3 positive cases at, you know, Marshall Great Works School where there's 280 students is very different than Bonnie Eagle High School where there's 2,300 students, and it's the same level of concern. So they changed that and said, look, we're going to go to the 15% rule, which is really traditionally how they handle chickenpox or types of things like that. So if your school staff, students included, the total N is 15% of people are out for that reason or are out sick, that's when you go into the outbreak status. And so that's a little bit different. There's a possibility that we get to that point. I don't, you know, we'll see what happens over the next 2 weeks. You know, this is going to be really a bumpy road for the next 2 weeks. You know, so I think there's some really good things about the new SOP. I think there's some things that we've got to iron out. I think, you know, I think it's the right plan. Probably, unfortunately, for the DOE, rolled out at the wrong time because of circumstances around the virus. And so we're trying to figure that out. So I've gotten some feedback from families expressing concerns about different things. So I just wanted to kind of give you all, and forgive me for going on for so long. I just wanted to slow down and just kind of give a big overview, though.
Yeah. Early in the pandemic, before vaccines and the like, when outbreak status was declared, there was at least the potential to talk about shutting the school for some period of time. Are they making any kind of, having any kind of thoughts around this new 15% outbreak status?
We haven't gotten clarity on that yet.
Yeah.
So I think the 15% is going to be interesting because I'm assuming from some emails that I got today that to get that 15%, you have to kind of pull out numbers. So, you know, someone who goes to Florida on vacation for 3 days, we pull them out of the 15%. If, you know, there's people who, you know, are going on a family ski trip, you know, if someone whose contact is a close contact in the community and they have to be out, we pull them out. So it's people who are actually sick.
Yep.
There hasn't been clarity yet as to how they're going to manage it.
Yep.
In the past, it typically was like schools would have a day off to be able to let the virus kind of calm down. This is a little bit different, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. That's one of the outstanding questions that we have is like, what does it look like? So today we got the form, how to report it. What does it look like? There are some schools right now that are at that 15% threshold. I'm not really sure how to manage it at this point in time. And I think that's probably for the DOE is probably one of the unfortunate things is that this Omni variant can hit it at this time. So.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Also, I think we all know that like trying to get testing at a drive-through site and get a PCR test is basically impossible or taking days. But so is the state accepting a home
Yes.
test?
Today, Dr. Shaw said, if you get a positive
But that will
rapid
count
antigen-
toward the outbreak status? So if a parent calls and says, I did a home test and it was positive, we're counting that positive, and the state will recognize that positive as a
Yeah, positive is easy. The hard part is the negatives.
Right.
And so like if you have, so play it the other way, that if you have someone who has, you know, my family at home all has, you know,
And I'm testing negative, right.
and I have COVID and I have negative, do you automatically come to school? So I think
Right.
we'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis, but yes, we would accept the
A
positive
positive-
home test.
Okay,
Yeah, I
Yes.
think initially they wouldn't, right?
That's correct.
Initially, the
Right.
state
That's
would not
correct.
accept the home test.
right.
So that's changed. So I think they've done a lot of things to change the dynamics. I just think there's some areas that they're just kind of raising that level of concern. And I think, you know, the sentiment is I think it's as I said, we have to move on at some point. I just think
Right.
some things
It's
hit at one time
environment.
that makes it much more difficult right now.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's important to note that what's going on right now isn't a result of the change on Thursday. That's not the reality. Feels like it, kind of, you know, and it doesn't feel real great with some of the things. And I think there's some parents who are saying yee-hee, and some people are saying, I can't believe this is happening, you know, and I've kind of heard from both, to be totally frank. Questions? And I hope I explained it. I mean, I think there is some other stuff that will go on. One of the things that I got to get my head around, and it's really going to boil down to the contact tracing thing. And so do I continue, what I'm concerned about is this, is that we send so many emails out now that people aren't reading what we send out. You know, that's the reality. So do we, not send out the big district email saying, we've had this case in these buildings, and just say, look, if we're going to keep the dashboard up to date on a daily basis, should we do that? And do we do that in addition to what the building-based contact tracing looks like? So like you were in this classroom, your child or a child in that classroom tested positive, those types of emails. So we've got to do a little bit of work tomorrow to kind of figure out what our next step is. I just want to be careful that it's hard enough to get the message across, and I think we're diluting our message with, not even to mention, the hibiscus sale for the senior class and those types of things that are going out in addition to this. So we're going to do some work on that, just so you're aware.
Yeah, as long as people are very clear that we are actually updating the dashboard on a daily basis.
It has to be a non-negotiable. It's the only way that we can do it.
And that they can get the numbers anytime they want.
And the last thing we want is people to think that we're hiding something. Like, it is what it is. I mean, there's nothing that we can do about it. We'll report the numbers as they are.
Right.
Yep.
Does it get confusing? Yeah, they sometimes come in fast and furious. We have some reporting mechanisms that we have in place, and we try to stay on top of it. It is tricky. There's no question about that. Particularly on pool testing days, you kind of hold your breath. And so we did our pool testing. Got those results back from the middle school and high school today, and tomorrow I think we'll get most of our elementary school pool testing results back. But those are kind of big days, because it's kind of one of the questions that's out there is has pool testing been devalued by the new plan? Because if you're universally masked, it really doesn't. Your pool testing was kind of the ticket to keep you in. If you're valuing the mask, does it have any value? And so that's a really legitimate question. And so a lot of people are using it as a diagnostic tool or just as a preventative measure. But it definitely, there's some questions about that. So that will be an issue going forward, just to kind of figure out where do we go with the pool testing. So for families, that will be a choice that people will have the opportunity to make. I think it's really important to note, though, that we're not changing what we're doing in the building. We're still social distancing at 3 feet. We're still asking people to wear, we're requiring people to wear masks. We're still have our ventilation system turned up to the maximum to turn that air over as much as we possibly can. We're still encouraging hand washing. So nothing's changed. What has changed, though, is kind of the whole extra layer, and I can't think of a better example. So sometimes, like if someone were to have an issue, like a skin issue, maybe where they had to have something removed, they might take some good skin around to be preventative, to make sure that something doesn't spread, right? And so that was kind of the idea behind the close contacts, that if we had a positive, that if we kind of create a circle around that person and say these people kind of had that direct close contact with that person, if they were to stay home, that would stop the spread. That would be a mechanism that would help to stop the spread.
Yep.
That part is gone now with the current plan, because it's been replaced by everybody wearing the universal masks. And so that feels uncomfortable to a lot of people. And so we're trying to work our way through that. And again, I think on top of it all, you're hitting at a time when there's a tidal wave right now. It's 18.4% positivity rate in York County as of today. That's a startling number. That's 3 times what it was in the fall, when it was around 6%. And again, I'm not trying to awfulize anything. I'm just, here's what we're trying to manage right now. This is the reality. So, any other questions that any of you may have?
No, just one question in terms of rapid tests. Are we using rapid tests within the nurses' offices if a student is feeling some of the symptoms, or?
Yeah, absolutely, when we can. The problem is we don't have enough tests. So like right now, we're running low. So we're trying to get through pool testing this week to see if we have any tests left. We've ordered 8,000 more from the state. And so we have to get approved for those. So I believe we were approved for those today. We're going to wait 2 days and try to order 8,000 more if we can. But the problem is you just can't get the testing kits. And so one of the things was, and Kiri did a beautiful job of kind of putting a memo out about some testing things. But the problem is we can't get tests. And so to be able to put that option out there, it's tough to put it on families, because then all of a sudden you're not pushing people 2 or 3 weeks out to get the testing at, whether Walgreens or someplace else. So we're just trying to work on that supply chain for the testing part. Yeah. Other questions?
Great job.
For our staff, just so everybody's aware, we did order, Dr. Shaw came out and said that there was, he felt like the N95 or KN95 masks were better masks.
Yeah.
And so we reached out to the state. Ryan did a great job of kind of digging through the website because it said the ordering was closed. Brian kind of found a backdoor way to get in and get some masks ordered. So we ordered 20,000 masks. And so we have 50 masks for each one of our staff members. And so why is 50 important? Because the KN95 typically lasts 2 days, maybe 3 days. And so that would get us to the end of the school year if people want to use that. And so it's a matter of choice, but we at least wanted to do whatever we could to keep people safe. And so that was one of the things that we did in order to try to accomplish that.
That's good.
Other questions? So hold on tight for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hopeful, you know, that if we can get over this where we are right now, that things will look better. I don't know if we continue to have, you know, staff out at a high rate. That's a real issue for us. You know, and we're really, some places we're at capacity. I think currently at our elementary schools, you know, I'm going to say this and watch tomorrow, but we're at a better place with our elementary schools as far as staffing goes, the middle and student attendance. High school, middle school is a little bit different beast, and so we're trying to manage that as best we can. One of the things that comes up all the time is just making sure we do things consistently amongst the buildings, and so we've gotten a lot of feedback that, you know, this building, you know, requires masks outdoors for recess. This building doesn't require masks outdoors for recess, and so we want to make sure we're consistent with that, and so we're getting some clarity on what that looks like. One of the stumbling blocks that we're running into with that is, and I put an email out today to Emily Poland with the DOE to get some clarity on, but it doesn't say anywhere in the SOP that if a child is coming back after being positive 5 days with symptoms resolving, they're back in school. It says that they need to mask, but it does not say they're required to mask outdoors. And so we're trying to get some clarity on whether they are required to wear masks outdoors or not. What we're going to do once we kind of get our bearings about us is that we're going to say it's a mask optional. So, you know, Jerry shared with us that even, you know, at the Great Works School currently, there are still kids who just choose to wear masks outdoors, and that's 100%. We don't want to say you can't wear a mask, and so we give people the choice of what they need to do. That does not impact our universal masking inside the building, though.
No.
So that's one of the few caveats that we have. Other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. The other thing, you know, amidst all of this is the childhood immunizations. And so I've been working with Judy Doran again around this. We sent a phone call out. The principals did a great job of getting kind of that full phone call out to remind parents, you know, that they may be behind. And a lot of people, you know, may have been just forgot to pass the form in or just need to go to the doctor's office in order around these childhood immunizations. And again, I want to be clear, it has nothing to do with COVID. This is about childhood immunizations. Yep. And as I mentioned last time, one of the curveballs is it Vaxicilla? Is that correct? Am I saying that correctly? The immunization, varicella. They added an additional dosage of varicella for an age group in October, which has created another strand of issues. So we created another group of people who aren't fully vaccinated at this point in time because we kind of changed the rules at the last minute. So we're working through with that. I will send a letter out myself on Thursday or Friday. What we have asked is to have an extension till the 28th of January, just to be able to kind of navigate the next couple of weeks and be able to give people an opportunity to be able to get themselves squared away before we kind of get to the point where we say people can't come to school, which is obviously what we'd like to avoid. For sure.
Are we at a large percentage?
Yeah, we have a large percentage of people who are missing things, but it's like pockets of things.
Pockets.
You know, so it's the varicella piece is the big one for us right now. So and a lot of it is just getting the forms in. People said they'll get them in, we just don't have them right now. So we'll, you know, so that's why we made the phone call honestly rather than the email, because again, I think the email has just been so overdone. So just a phone call. And then once we get that number down, that will allow our administrative assistants and nurses to start making those phone calls. The hard part with our nurses is that with all the contact tracing, it's been hard to find time to be able to do that because you're in the kind of the crisis mode at that point in time. What I am going to do, though, along the lines of COVID, just so I let you all know this, is that I asked Judy to send me that document again where she kind of outlined what contact tracing looked like. And I'm going to ask them to share that with the state of Maine. Because I don't know necessarily, and I know as a principal, there's times when I think, oh gosh, why don't we just do it this way? You know, and as you get further from the classroom sometimes, you lose kind of sight of what it's like to have your boots on the ground handling things. So I just think it might be an important document for them to take a look at and say, wait a second, I didn't think of it this way. Because it sounds like a pretty easy task until you really kind of unfold what it looks like, particularly at a high school. You know, it becomes a whole different ball of wax by the time, you know, if a child's involved 3 or 4 different clubs and all these types of things, you're going back 5 days and those types of things, so. Fantastic, and that concludes my report.
John, can I go backwards for a second?
Yeah, of course.
You were saying that it says several places in here that even if they, stayed home for 5 days and came back, and you were saying, do they have to wear a mask indoors or outdoors? It specifies that must wear a mask around others for at least 5 additional days. It doesn't make a definite. Are you saying that because there's no
No, they have to wear a mask indoors. The question, it doesn't
Because
address
it
the-
doesn't say indoors or outdoors, it says around others. So I would
Correct.
take that to mean if you're outside and you're in a close group, you should still be wearing one.
And so we asked one person in the DOE, we got one answer, we asked a different person, got another answer. So I think I just tried to
Okay,
get
I
everybody
get it, yeah.
on the same page. And my understanding is the latest answer I had is that the SOP does not address outdoor activities at all.
Oh, okay.
So I think what they're saying is that can be our decision of how we want to handle that. Now,
I mean, outdoors seems safer, but,
and that if we want to make that decision, that can be a really easy decision. But keep in mind, though, is that, like, let's just say at Central School, kids decide they're not wearing masks. They don't want to wear masks, and all of a sudden, only the kids who are coming back with COVID are wearing masks, and the other kids aren't wearing masks. It kind of creates a really the Sneetches phenomenon,
Yeah,
and we want to be
I
really
don't like
careful of
that.
that. So we're going to take our time to kind of go through all of these things. And I feel badly for the DOE in a lot of ways because they're writing this document, which is very involved, and people, thousands of people looking at this and turning on every single word of trying to, making, because each one of us does have our own different ways that we have to manage it. So anyway,
so right now the kids do or do not wear masks outside?
they are not required to wear masks outside. Some schools have decided to continue to wear masks, and so that issue came to me about a month ago, and so what I said was that when the new SOP came out, we would have a universal ruling to say this is what we need to do. It makes sense, why at Central School would you not wear a mask outside, but at LE you have to wear a mask
Right.
outside?
That's
And that was
weird. I
brought up as an
wanted-
issue. Yep.
I didn't know.
And I think the idea is that, are there some factors? Sure. There's staffing factors where you might have more people available at recess to be able to keep kids apart. You might have more time in your schedule to be able to have 2 classes out of recess rather than 4. So there are some variables, but I do think the cohorting piece is really a big piece. So I just think in the big picture, we want to be able to just have a universal understanding this is how we're going to manage it going forward. Again, it's kind of a tricky time to say, the numbers are way up, that we're going to loosen some standards some places, but I just think we want to be consistent. It's really important. So, any other questions? Annabelle.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. I don't have too much to go over since we've only been back in school for 3 days, but I do have some student gov updates. The Hawk Block for January 19th is a go. We will be having a scavenger hunt / crossword that will include a puzzle of mental health terms and their definitions. It's mainly just focused on spreading awareness and how to improve and just look into your mental health, as that has been a really big factor in this year. There's been like a decline and then kids just not knowing how to deal with it. So we want to bring some light to that. And then there will also be a Kahoot. It'll be like shifting what you'll be doing. We did that earlier in the year where we had 3 different options where we go from one place to another and then back to our advisory. And that's the plan for this Hawk Block as well. So there will be like a Kahoot game in the gym about mental health. And then that's what Student Gov's big project is right now, and we're very excited for it. The Civil Rights team is planning to create informative posters and flyers for the upcoming MLK Junior Day. The GSA will be presenting to staff on the 19th during their staff meeting in regards to pronoun usage for the upcoming semester, since teachers will be getting new students, and we just want to promote staff using them, so it's more of a safe space for students who identify with different pronouns, like they, them pronouns, to feel comfortable sharing them. And January 21st is the last day of quarter 2 and the last day of semester 1. And the National Honor Society was supposed to be deliberating their members this Thursday, but is postponed till next week due to staff being absent. And lastly, for sports, girls basketball's record is currently 1-5. But the most recent game was lost to Wells 51-39. Boys basketball is 5-1. The most recent game, they beat Wells 44-30. And lastly, the Nighthawks hockey team beat Kennebunk 9-1 on Friday. That is all I have for you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add one other part about just the
Please, go ahead.
SOP? One of the things that the state added is that if districts want to supersede and become more stringent than what they are saying, that districts have the ability to do that if they like to do that. I just think that if that's ever something we want to discuss and you as a board want to discuss, we've always kind of said, like, we're going to stick with what the CDC tells us to do, you know, and so there may be some things we might want to think about down the road, but I just think I would recommend us letting the things over the next couple of days sort themselves out a little bit, and so we have a sense of where things are going to go. I do expect some changes to come. There has been a significant amount of pushback, so I think they're trying to process everything and try to find a way to make it all work, taking the feedback that's coming.
Yep.
So,
Thank
okay?
you. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, correspondence, we have none over these past couple of weeks. Report of the committees, Finance and Facilities will next meet on January 19th. That's in 2 weeks. It'll be just before this regular meeting on the 19th. Ed Policy will next meet on the 26th and has not met since our last meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, that is correct.
I
Okay,
apologize
so
for that.
No, that's all right. Next meeting will be the 26th. The Wellness SEL Committee met earlier, did not meet.
We had a last-minute cancellation yesterday for some
Okay, last minute
conflicts, so we'll
cancellation,
meet in
okay, so,
February.
Next meeting will be in a month?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll look for a report from that committee at the beginning of February. And then the fourth is the advisory committee that has been working on the portion of the website that relates to the board. Are there any additional?
No
information?
specific updates this
Yeah,
time around.
that's live now, and we're going to continue to chip away at updates on some of the subpages, but, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Joe, can I just add one quick piece? The RFP group for the food service selection met yesterday, and so we were creating our rubric. We were going off some questions, kind of created a template of kind of what we valued most as we kind of reviewing that document, and as we kind of had those interviews. And I believe we're scheduled on the 20th of January to have the two groups in for their interviews on that day. So we hope to have a decision made early that next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
I should say we hope to have a recommendation for the board early
Right.
that next week when we have that next board meeting.
Yep.
Because ultimately the board will vote on that, whether they want to choose
Right.
to accept that or not.
Very good.
Sorry.
Okay, that concludes this section on the committees. Under new business, we have just the one thing. May I have a motion, please, to approve this anonymous donation? Intriguing.
I move to approve an anonymous donation for elementary school lunch program in the amount of $628.65.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Kate. John, what do you know about this, apart from the
Just
identity of
an
the
anonymous
donor?
person came in and really wanted to pay down some lunch balances at our elementary schools for families prior to the break. Just such a delightful gesture and just such a thoughtful thing to do, but they did want to be anonymous doing so.
Certainly was a delightful gesture.
Now, is free lunch still available to all the
Yes,
kids?
yeah, but there's still many balances from 2 years ago when there was still, and there's
Okay.
still
That's what I
a la
wondered.
carte. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
Great.
Questions or comments? All in favor? That's 5-0. And thank you very much to that anonymous donor.
Yes.
Very kind. Last portion of our agenda is the building administrator check-in. We have the lower grades reporting tonight. Who wishes to go first?
Told me to go, so what Dinah says. So I just, a story of, I had a new kiddo come from Vermont on Monday, so she started school on Tuesday. And so I met with her mom, and we walked, talked in the office, and then I walked her around the building. And so I walked her into her classroom. She was really nervous about her classroom. And so I walked in, and the kids knew she was coming, and so the kids welcomed her. And so I said to the kids, tell Jordan about Great Work School. And and they could say anything, who knows what they're gonna say. But, I just got teary-eyed, the kids are saying, our teachers are awesome, our kids are nice. And then one kiddo said, Lily said, we're such an inclusive school. And I said, honey, what do you mean by that? And she goes, it really doesn't matter what clothes you wear. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. He said, we all like each other, and we're all kind to each other. And I thought, out of the mouths of babes, we have got to be doing something right. And that's at the Great Works School, but that goes for all the schools as well. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
That's
That's
great.
wonderful.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for that.
Thank you. Seems like a long time ago now, but we had our Nutcracker in December, and it's a big rite of passage for our third graders, and it's the second year in a row that it was a virtual event, but the kids did a wonderful job, and it was pre-recorded, and they got to redo their steps a few times, so I think there's some benefits from getting recorded and sending it out to all the community. So just a big thank you to our third grade staff and Kate Smith and Rachel Moore, who really do that every year. And our PTOs also sponsored a virtual. They usually take a field trip to see the Nutcracker, but this year we did a virtual event where they got to see, I think it was the Soul City Dance that did the Nutcracker, so we were able to do that. But we also had Sheila Cleary and Alana Crafty did a great job gathering gift cards from the communities to give to families in need. So we had over $2,000 in gift cards that we were able to hand out to families and some cash donations. So just a big thank you to everybody for that. And then I just wanted to thank, just a big shout out for my staff, like coming back from vacation and everything's a little up in the air, and just everyone's done such an amazing job helping each other and stepping in, and I just can't ask for a better staff, so I was very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. These two principals are so smooth, and I'm so formal. Three Dogs Rescue, some of you may know about that. Three Dogs Rescue is the subject of service learning for our second grade students at Elliott Elementary School. Really exciting that the students collected donations from their homes, which included dog toys, bowls, beds, and a variety of other pet-friendly items, which were donated to Three Dogs. And part of that learning experience included a writing piece, a persuasive writing piece, to find pet-friendly forever homes for the dogs. It was precious. Great experience for the kids, and the second grade teachers did a super job facilitating that. I just wanted to give you an update regarding our preschool ages 3 and 4 special program. Really exciting about that. I think you'd be really proud to be a part of that. Our preschool team, in conjunction with the pre-kindergarten team, have worked very closely to make sure that that is working for our kids and families. Just a couple of facts about it. The program's growing. We started off with a very small number of students at first, as you know, and it's grown to 6 kids right now. We are watching students grow, steady growth, the teacher reports in language development, toilet training, behavior management, emotional coping, and independent skills. Just what we want. What's exciting is we're starting this right now. The 3 and 4-year-olds are starting to integrate to some degree with our pre-K kids, so that the role models within the pre-K kids really rub off. It's really a positive experience for both groups. And also, the preschool kids are going to join those pre-K kids in some of their specialists, which includes physical education, art, music, and library. So we're really excited about that. And finally, the feedback that we're getting from families relative to that program is exceptionally positive. So it's good news.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from anybody on the board? How about a motion to adjourn then?
I move to adjourn.
Second, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. All in favor? That is 5-0, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank